Hello, this is Paul Harris for Kitco News at the BMO Global Metals and Mining Conference. I'm joined today with Phil Baker, President and CEO of Hecla Mining. Morning, Phil.
Thanks, Paul.
Hecla's share price has surged significantly over the last 6 months or so. How have you managed to turn things around, and what are the difficulties you've overcome?
Well, look, 2019 and the first few months of 2020 is really a transformation of Hecla. What we did was come to the realization that we needed to protect our balance sheet. So there were projects in Nevada that we decided we needed to stop the spending on those projects to assure that the balance sheet was in good shape. So we did that. So if you look at 2019, second half of the year, we generated 70% of all of the EBITDA we generated for the year. And then we had the strike resolved in the first week of the year. And then just last week, we closed on a refinancing, a new bond that takes our long-term debt out to 2028 from 2021. So we've relieved all the pressure that people thought we might be under.
Okay, well, let's go into a little bit more depth on some of those things. The Lucky Friday worker agreement. With that in place now, I understand the idea is for the operation to be up at full production by year end. How would you expect that to improve the company's performance going forward?
Well, it's going to be dramatic, and it's dramatic from two perspectives. One is we had all this money that we were spending while the mine was on strike. It was in operation, but it couldn't cover the whole cost of maintaining the operation. And then we'll generate free cash flow. So it's a huge swing, about a $30 or $40 million swing in cash flow. So that's first. The second thing is we will have, for the next 2 years, quarter-over-quarter growth in production, just because the mine is ramping back up. And then thirdly, we will see in the future, because of the grade increases at the Lucky Friday, we'll see the mine increase production about 60% from where we'll be in next year over the next 5 years.
Well, in some ways, the timing couldn't be better with the gold price increasing, the silver price increasing on the back of that. It's the right time for that to happen.
Well, and that's right, and that's part of the reason why we were so intent on going back into production at the Lucky Friday in 2020. So we actually, we had a situation as we were working through with the union, and they voted against the proposal. We were prepared to bring in contractors to operate in 2020, regardless of whether the workforce came back. When they saw that, they voted again and decided to come back to work.
Okay, recent years have seen miners in general, but in the precious metal space particularly, focusing on getting their balance sheets in a healthier condition, paying down debt, etc. You completed a refinancing, so what does that do to your debt situation, and what impact will that have on the company's performance going forward?
Sure. So in 2019, we did three things to reduce the amount of debt we had. The first thing we did was we generated $60 million of free cash flow, and we applied it to the debt. The second thing we did was did a small equity issuance of about $49 million, and we applied that to the debt. The third thing we did was a debt equity swap of $31 million. So we had a net reduction in debt of $136 million. We only took 6% dilution to do that 24% reduction in indebtedness. So we now have an interest expense going forward that will probably be 25% less in 2020 than it was in 2019, and it's very long-term debt, no covenants to speak of other than paying the interest.
Does that give you sort of greater flexibility and opportunity to continue investing in the business, innovations, development, that kind of thing?
Absolutely. The market was very concerned about this debt that was coming due in 2021. We knew that if we took the steps that we took, we would get the outcome that we did. And with that outcome, it really puts us in a position to take the substantial amount of free cash flow that we generate and reinvest it in the business.
And here at the BMO, the meetings you've had with investors, I guess existing investors and potential investors, have they responded well to these changes?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you think about the investors that are here, they reflect the investors that have caused the share price to roughly double since the middle of last year. So they're very supportive.
Okay, and so now that you've got some of these issues behind you, how do you see the company growing in the next few years, and what's the strategic focus now?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it's the Lucky Friday, the growth that you see there. In addition to that, we have at Casa Berardi, our gold mine in Quebec, a intense program in improving the availability within the mill. That will increase gold production. In addition to that, we've made discoveries of underground mineralization that's twice the average grade of the reserve underground mineralization. That's going to increase gold production. So those are the two real big drivers of growth that we'll see. But in addition to that, we have a number of other projects, particularly in San Sebastian, New Mexico, that we will likely make a decision first half of the year on moving that development forward. Very small capital requirement. Ultimately, whatever capital we need to spend there, the mine itself is generating. So that's another source of growth.
Okay, you mentioned earlier that you had to sort of rein in a little bit on the Nevada projects. Now that the company's in a healthy position, at what point would you sort of take those up again?
Well, the first thing we're going to do is study it. The cutoff grade that we have there is almost half an ounce. So in other words, all material that's below a half an ounce, it's really 0.4 ounces per ton, we're not mining. So we've got to figure out how to lower the cost. It's probably related to a dewatering program. And so we're in the study mode. And we'll do that study mode for a period of 1 to 2 years. If we do need to dewater more, then we'll have to get permits to allow us to dewater. So stay tuned for what's happening in Nevada, both at Fire Creek as well as at the rest of the properties, because the reason we've acquired those assets are still in place. It's super high grade, 1 ounce head grade potential that we think we're going to discover.
It sounds like you've got a lot of interesting catalysts ahead of you.
We do.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Phil. And thank you for watching. Stay tuned on kitco.com for more from the BMO Global Metals and Mining Conference.